And we are live. Hello. Welcome to our Wednesday broadcast. Today is the 18th of August, and it is the 10th day of the Hebrew month of Elul. So we are wrapping up the summer season, and we're wrapping up as we wrap up this month of Elul. We will be entering into a brand new Hebrew year, and I love this, the Hebrew year of 5782. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about that as we enter in. Of course, September 6th on our calendar is Rosh Hashanah, which will be entering into the new year. And it gives us like a 3-month jump on the year, which is kind of cool. And we're going to talk a lot about that in weeks coming up. But today I'm very excited to jump into something that really God put on my heart this morning to talk about. And I'm excited to be live today in our Self-Care Soul Care Sanctuary group, and also in our parent coaching group that we kicked off last night. So it was amazing. And it occurred to me when we were kind of joking around in the group call and said, any questions that you have, aside from like, what is the meaning of life? And it was so funny because God really put it on my heart today. What is the meaning of life? And so we're going to tackle that. And surprisingly, I think you're going to be amazed at what I'm going to share with you guys today. I have been incredibly influenced by a man named Viktor Frankl, and he actually wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And I've done a lot of reading, and I've been reading him and kind of following his teachings and stuff for the last couple years. And last year in our homeschool group, I got to teach psychology. And it was such a great opportunity. And I brought in the elements of grief recovery, of understanding grief and loss. I also brought in a lot of elements of the teachings that Viktor Frankl has laid out for us. So I'm going to share with you guys a little bit of that. So we are going to look at a lot of stuff by this brilliant man named Viktor Frankl. So if this is the first time that you are hearing about him, I can't recommend his book, Man's Search for Meaning, enough. It was required reading in my class, and it is to this day known as one of the top, like probably 10 books that are always on that list of books you need to read, So I am going to jump in, and we're going to talk a little bit about that because it really all comes together for this month that we're in. I'm going to weave a little bit of that about this month of Elul, what it means as a parent, as a spouse, as a person, right? So I'm going to start off with a quote from Viktor Frankl's book, A Man's Search for Meaning. And it says, ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of his life is, but rather he must recognize that it is he who is asked. Think about that. He loves to flip the script. I'll tell you that right now. So, but recognizing that it is he who is asked. So instead of asking, it's like life is asking of you. So in a word, each man is questioned by life, and he can only answer to life by answering for his own life. To life, he can only respond by being responsible. And I love that. He wraps it all up into this responsibility, right? That we are responsible. So responsibleness is the very essence of human existence. That is a quote. So that is so powerful. And there's so many layers to that, right? And it's really the foundation of everything that we teach, everything that we do in Self-Care Soul Care Sanctuary and PK4L and Freedom from Grief. All of these things are founded on taking responsibility for our reactions, for our responses, for how we view and see things. Those are things that no one can fix or change for us. It is our responsibility to do that. So I love how he says responsibleness is the very essence of human existence. So if there's something that is, if you're thinking about parenting, or you're thinking about life, or if you're thinking about your integrity or different things and where you've blown it and where all those things are, know that shame is the first thing that comes in that stops us from this right here. When we feel shame, it is the most damaging, and it is what causes us to check out. It's what causes us to blame. It's what causes us to spiral down into a place where we can't step in. It is one of Satan's greatest tools, and it is not of God. It is never of God. It is never of God to condemn or to shame, ever. So I like to, and I agree with Viktor Frankl here, that the work that we're doing here is like an ophthalmologist or an eye specialist, right? So they're trying to enable you to see the world as it really is, fixing your eyes so that you can see, Our role consists of widening and broadening your visual field so that the whole spectrum of potential of meaning becomes conscious and visible. How incredible is that? Isn't that the work that we're doing as we're breaking through strongholds and belief systems that cause us to see life through the lens of a lie? So just by declaring that you are responsible, that we are responsible, we are closing the door on a poverty mindset. We're closing it to a victim mindset, to failure, to shame. Just by recognizing that, just by flipping that script a little, and instead of feeling like this floundering, I have no idea what is the meaning of life, right? It's about, okay, if someone asked me that, what would I say for me personally? Not this esoteric out there kind of thing that's this big idea. It's like bringing it down to, what is that for you? So what's awesome about what we're doing by broadening our view, right, is we're declaring these things, shutting the door to poverty, to victim mentality, to all those things. And I want to remind you right now, it is not stepping forth in our own strength. Sometimes we can think at that moment, like, I'm shutting the door on these things, I'm moving forward, with all my strength mustered. No, this is stepping forth in a partnership with God. It's stepping forth in humility and the self-awareness that comes from a healed heart. So Viktor Frankl's life work culminated in a beautiful healing therapy called logotherapy. And he says it like this: thus far, we have shown that the meaning of life always changes, but it never ceases to be. So there's always a meaning to your life. And in different phases and stages of your life, there is a different meaning. And all of them, because God is so perfect and so amazing, will build and will have a purpose for the next and the next, right? So incredible. There's always a meaning. So according to Viktor Frankl's life experience and teaching, we can discover the meaning of life in 3 ways. There are 3 ways. 1, by creating a work or doing a deed. 2, by experiencing something or encountering someone. 3, by the attitude we take toward unavoidable suffering. So the first, which is achievement and accomplishment, it's pretty obvious, right? This is probably the one that people tend to go to first. What has God put on your heart? What has God made you passionate about? Or maybe you've had life experiences that have created in you a desire to fight for something, or to be a part of changing something. And it takes a lot of self-awareness to make something out of a passion. It does. It takes a lot of self-awareness. It also takes a lot of inner work and healing to break through the very things, the beliefs, the limitations, to partner with God in that journey, because you will never, ever do that journey on your own. You can't. God put things on your heart that are beyond your ability to do on your own strength. So this is about partnership with him. So what are the things in the inner work and the healing that break through the lies that you believe about God, about yourself, about these things? Because without doing that, you will not be able to step forward into that calling or into that passion. So I love this too, and listen to this carefully. This is another quote from Viktor Frankl, and it says, self-actualization attainable aim at all. For the simple reason that let me start over. Self-actualization is not an attainable aim at all, for the simple reason that the more one would strive for it, the more he would miss it. Self-actualization is only possible as a side effect of self-transcendence. So we cannot do these things on our own. When we transcend the beliefs, the strongholds, the things that have kept us captive, that's when actualization begins. That's when we begin to step into things that before we were not able to. That's when we're able to stop procrastinating, when we stop focusing on it, right? We get to move forward, and all of a sudden you go, oh, wow, I've been a lot more productive. I have been a lot more focused, because self-actualization is possible only when it's a side effect of growth of these things. When breakthroughs happen, aha moments, when belief systems are shown for the lies that they truly are, that's when you know that self-transcendence is happening. All of a sudden, you have a new awareness and a new ability to see when you're in a moment. When you have a breakthrough of something, and all of a sudden you're in a moment where you're with your spouse or with your kids, and that moment usually results in a trigger for you and a response from you that does not add to or grow the situation. All of a sudden you're seeing it and going, oh my gosh, I'm not feeling rejected here. Or I am, but I'm so aware of what's happening right now that I have the ability to speak in the moment about what I'm experiencing and feeling. This is all growth that doesn't happen by reading a book about it, by reading a book on boundaries and how to have them. It happens with that work and that self-transcendence. So this is how you step by step embrace the journey of living the meaning of your life. And I think sometimes it's so important to see, we hear these cliches like to enjoy the journey and to realize that part of our passion and our meaning is the journey. It is stepping into that. I don't know, this is popping into my mind, but if any of you have ever seen the movie Up, it's a tearjerker. It is a tearjerker. But at the end of the movie, he discovers her book of the journey. And they always had this dream to go on this vacation, and they were always saving for that. And there was always something happening that they needed the money for. So you see a lot of them putting the money together, and they're totally partners. And then in the end, she gets sick. And if you haven't seen the movie, this is a spoiler. So she passes away. Something just broke. I have no idea, but I'm going to stay focused. So, but she had made this scrapbook that her husband found. And as he was looking through the scrapbook, it makes me cry, but he realized that he and their life together was her greatest journey. So, it's amazing when we can connect to this idea that God is trying to tell you right now that he is that partner with you. And everything that you're experiencing, everything that we're experiencing, even in this moment, with everything that's going on in our world and in other countries, and all of the pain that's happening right now, is part of this journey that we are on. So the second way of finding meaning in life is by experiencing something, right? What does he mean by that? It's goodness, truth, and beauty. By experiencing nature and culture, or by experiencing another human being by loving them. So, love is the only way to fully grasp another human being in the innermost core of their personality. By this, the loving person enables the beloved person to actualize their potential. And I love how that is said. The loving person enables the beloved person. What a great title to think of as you are a spouse or if you are a parent, that you are the loving person and your child, your children, your spouse is the beholder of that. They are the beloved person by you. So, and the amazing thing that transcends this is that there's no controlling in this scenario. There's no manipulating, controlling, none of that. This is a transcendent type of love that comes from a healed heart. And as we work on ourselves, we're able to appear for other people that way by investing and not controlling. This is a high calling, 100%. If you are a spouse or a parent or a human being that's around people, you know this is a high calling. And I know you understand what I'm saying. And as much as we grow and as much as we work on things, we will blow it. And the beautiful thing is that we have opportunity all the time to have humility and to apologize and to take responsibility, to own. When there are conflicts that happen, it's actually closer to intimacy when you look at that. When you are over here avoiding conflict, when you're not, when you have conflict, that is the way to intimacy. So even in those times when we don't react in the best way, when we're triggered and we react, there is a great opportunity for connection in that. When we take that responsibility, when we own and when we apologize, when we connect and when we invest, it's amazing. So the notion that experiencing can be as valuable as achieving is therapeutic because it compensates for our one-sided emphasis on the external world of achievement at the expense of the internal world of experience. So this is what we experience a lot in life because the focus a lot is on the external. It's on what are we accomplishing? What are my goals? Where am I going? Which it comes quickly with where am I falling short? Where am I blowing it? How am I able to see where God is calling me and show up 100% fully present in that? If you are a mom of young kids, what is God calling you in your life? If you are a mom of or a dad of teens, where is God calling you in your life? Like everything shifts, but like Viktor Frankl told us in the beginning, but it never ceases to be that there is a meaning in where we are. I love how this particular part plays right into this month of Elul that we talked about in detail last week. But this month, it's the month that the king is in the field. And it is always a semblance of Jesus. But when you go back to the times of the Old Testament teachings, the kings were in the palace. And if you wanted to meet with the king, you had to have an appointment and you had to be dressed right. You had to speak right. There was a protocol to it, right? Well, there was this month of Elul, where the king came out and went among the people. And he was in the field where he was accessible. And this month, the king is exceptionally accessible to you. Now, we know that this is a shadow of what Jesus would bring to us, that we get to have not just our connection to Jesus and to God, and as the Trinity, the Spirit is within us. So we have that accessibility all the time. But how amazing is it that this month is designed for us to really connect to the fact that God is so accessible to us? Sometimes we need that reminder. Like, all I have to do is pray right now. I can stop what I'm doing and pray. I can go into my car or my prayer closet or on a walk or somewhere where I can invest in my time alone with God. This month, the name Elul, the Hebrew words also, they are the letters when in the book of Psalms or Proverbs, I think it's Proverbs, No, it's Psalms. When God speaks to us and he says, I am my beloved and my beloved is mine. Okay. I'm just now thinking that might be Song of Solomon. I am my beloved and my beloved is mine. That is the essence of this month. This month is about that. It's about that connection. So beautiful that this month is about that. So as we're ending a summer season of nurturing what was planted in you in the spring, the seeds that were planted in you, nurturing that for the fall abundant harvest. So this is that last time. And I love that this month represents love. This month represents complete, I'm available for you. What do you need? How can I work with you? That is the message that God has for you today in this month in particular. So that's how I aligned and felt like this month was aligning with this today when God was saying, this is what I want you to share about. So there was a third, remember, that's the attitude that we take toward unavoidable suffering. So I wanted to take this moment and share a little bit with you about Viktor Frankl, about this man, because his life and the first half of this book is about his experience in Auschwitz. He was a young man that lived in Germany. He was a Jewish man, and he was very accomplished. At 19, he was in college, and he was already learning. He was becoming a professor. Sigmund Freud was literally one of his mentors. He was mentoring under Freud, and he was writing theses and he was writing things. And he had an opportunity to leave when things were coming down, when World War II was happening. He had a visa that he and his wife could leave Germany and come to the US because of all that he was already doing as a professor. And he had elderly parents, and he, through prayer, decided that it was his call to not leave his parents and to stay with them. And that came through a conversation that he had with his father after he was lamenting about this choice to leave or to stay to take care of his parents. And he and his dad were talking one day, and his dad had been given a piece of a rock of a broken 10 Commandments, and it was the stone tablet. I'm not saying it was the original, but he had this, right? And the piece that he got, Viktor asked his father, what commandment is on that? And it was the commandment that said to take care of your father and mother. This is the only commandment that comes with a promise. And he knew in that moment that he was supposed to stay. So he ended up with his wife and his parents going to Auschwitz. He was the only survivor. And it was through that experience that he created logotherapy. And that beginning of this book makes the second half of the book and his work when he went on and created the Logotherapy Institute, and he created this, it made it so much more powerful because he is someone who can speak on unimaginable suffering. And I wanted to share a little excerpt out of this. I need water. I'm gonna hope that coffee does it. Okay, so there is a couple things. Okay, so first I wanted to share this, talking about suffering and talking about how he is able to flip the script. I just love this man so much. And he's sharing in his book about an example with a actual client that he had, a patient that he had who came to him. And I'm going to read it straight from the book. You'll get an idea of his writing as well. So an elderly general practitioner, a doctor, right, consulted me because of his severe depression. He could not overcome the loss of his wife, who had died 2 years before and whom he had loved above all else. Now, how could I help him? What should I tell him? Well, I refrained from telling him anything, but instead confronted him with the question: listen to this, what he says. What would have happened, doctor, if you had died first? Your wife would have had to survive you. Oh, he said, for her, this would have been terrible. How she would have suffered. Whereupon I replied, you see, doctor, such a suffering has been spared her. And it was you who have spared her this suffering, to be sure, at the price that now you have to survive and mourn her. He said no word, but shook my hand and calmly left my office. And in some way, suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds meaning, such as the meaning of sacrifice. So it's so amazing to think, he says, of course, this was no therapy in the proper sense, since first, his despair was no disease, and second, I could not change his fate. I could not revive his wife, right? But in that moment, I was able to succeed in changing his attitude toward his unalterable fate. And I love this. This is one of the basic tenets of logotherapy, that a man's main concern is not to gain pleasure or to avoid pain, but rather to see meaning in his life. That is why man is even ready to suffer on the condition to be sure that his suffering has meaning. So what's so powerful about his world and about his thing is that he brought with him, when he went into the camp, he had brought his thesis with him, and he had stuffed it into the pocket. He had actually sewn it into the lining of his coat. And when he went through Auschwitz, of course, everything was taken from him. Everything was stripped from him. And the one thing that was the one thing that he held the most dear was taken from him, and that was his thesis. But he knew that he had a purpose, that God had called him to have, that he had hope for people. And so when he lost all of his belongings, went through the shearing of his hair, went through all of that, he was given a jacket, because that's what happened. You were given clothing. You were given clothing that by somebody else, and he put on a jacket that he was to wear, you know, for the rest of his time there. And inside of the pocket of that coat was the Shema. It was someone had put a little slip of paper. And if you know what the Shema is, and if you don't, I'm gonna post it later, but I want you to research that. It is a prayer, and it is the prayer that Hebrews put on the door of their homes. And I'm going to literally post it below, because I want you to see how God spoke to him in that moment, that this was something that he had grown up doing, saying, that his family had practiced, that it was the prayer that God was never going to leave, that he was protected above all else. That's what was the slip of paper that was in the coat that he would get randomly. So I really wanted to share these things with you guys today, to understand that there are so many layers to what God is speaking to us about meanings, about meaning of life. And as we align with the callings that he's put on us, as we align with the months, because the months have so much in them. There's so much that God is doing to partner with you through this journey. And I always, whenever I'm sharing, this scripture comes on my mind, and it's Psalm, and I'm forgetting the Psalm, but you guys know, if you've heard me share it before, because it is one of my two favorite scriptures of all time. And it says, blessed are those whose heart is set on pilgrimage, on the journey. Because as we go through the valley of Baca, the valley of tears, God brings us through springs, and we literally move from strength to strength. So even if there is suffering happening right now in your home, in your parenting, with relationships, with in your own walk with God, if you're suffering through health things, through loss, God is with you, and he is walking you through this valley, through an amazing experience that on the other side is going to bring you closer to that meaning that he has placed on your life. So I just wanted to share that with you guys today. Thank you so much for being a part of our world, whether you're here through PK4L, through that group, through self-care, soul care, however you're here, we love you. We are here with you. We are invested 100%. And we come live every Wednesday to share with you what God is speaking to us as we're aligning with the Hebrew roots of our faith and bringing forth whatever we're learning and gleaning to you guys. So have a beautiful and blessed Wednesday. We love you, and we'll see you next time.